intentionally showing some situations you can be in with little bubbles you saw. Just trust the egress channels, it'll come up.
Hey, what's up everybody? It's Street Pilot's Garage, and as you guys have been harassing me, I wanted to talk about my wrap. So here I am at Prima Graphics with Tyson, and today we're going to talk a little bit about what we have done to this bike and what wrapping is all about. So I'll give you the floor to introduce yourself.
Perfect, thank you very much. My name is Tyson and I'm one of the owners here at Prima Graphics. We've been in business now for just about 10 years, and we work on a variety of vehicles. Anything from color change wraps to printed vehicle graphics to working with graphics for commercial fleets. And we absolutely love what we do. The whole process from the quoting through to design, through to printing, installation is something we have an absolute passion for. And when we get to work on a vehicle such as this, that's definitely out of the ordinary, out of the norm. This is what really gets us out of bed in the morning.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, this was such a pleasure because when I got to pick up my bike, it wowed me, and it's been wowing everybody on the street ever since. Instagram, YouTube, wherever people see the bike, it's one of the biggest props I get is the wrap. And how good it is that people actually sometimes don't even know it's a wrap. They think it's fully painted. And is that a big thing to you that people think it's painted? Do you think that's a compliment, or do you want it to be seen as a wrap?
You know what? For me, it doesn't really matter too much either way. I think there are certain situations where a paint might be more suitable versus a wrap. I think in general, with the capabilities of graphic design, to have a graphic design setup and then printing onto a media for a wrap, does give you a bit more kind of flexibility and creativity versus paint. So,
no, for sure. Yeah. I think that's a perfect answer, because somebody like me where maybe I have a new idea and then once a year I want to change it, I think it's a fantastic option than having to strip it all down and repaint it. Sure. It's cost effective and time effective as well. Mm-hmm. With that being said, what got you into this industry?
It's a good question. So I have two business partners. One of them is Matt, who you guys will see later for a little video on a how-to guide for some basic wrap installation. And another one is his brother, Dan, who owns a sign company with me on the side. Both of them grew up in the signage industry. Their parents owned a very big, broad spectrum sign company that did everything under the sun, from vehicle wraps to backlit signs to building presentation centers and doing some millwork, other things like that incorporated into the signage realm. So for me, I essentially had known these guys for a while. I went to school to become a business owner. I always had known I wanted to be an entrepreneur. But when I essentially finished my school, I had debt. I had no idea what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to be a business owner. And then it was just essentially a lucky alignment to some people I knew who had some experience in the industry. So that was it. I was kind of brought into vehicle wrapping, and I feel blessed every single day that I was introduced to this industry, because it's something that I really have a passion for. So it's a lot of fun.
No, that's actually really cool. I didn't even know that. That's being brought up in the signage industry. Is there a lot of a translation between the two?
So my other company, we actually do like outdoor temporary signage. It's very much so kind of like a niche temporary turnover. We work with a lot of commercial real estate firms. So for Prima Graphics versus my other company, it is quite a bit different.
Okay.
There's much more specialization that goes into the process for Prima Graphics, into the graphic design setup, into the communication with customers, at the start of the design process as well. And I would say the finished product for like, seeing an awesome bike like this rolling out of your shop versus like a temporary, rezoning sign that we might put up for the other company. This is one that's a lot easier to be more passionate about.
Okay, no, that's for sure. That's for sure. All right, since we're on the topic of it, can you walk and talk us, myself, and the audience? Yeah. What is the process from start to finish of getting something like this? So, because you guys put me in touch with Lewis, who's the designer, and I didn't even know that there was designing involved at the beginning. And so, what's a customer's expectation to getting something like this?
For sure. So the first start of the process is essentially understanding what the price point is going to be and it's creating a quote. So on a bike like this, we would want to understand exactly what areas are going to be receiving coverage. That allows us to essentially assess our materials cost. based on the complexity of wrapping each one of those areas, we can anticipate what our labor will be going into it. And that allows us to pretty much come up with a quote that's accurate enough. On a bike like this as well, sometimes we'll roll a graphic design stage that's an hourly rate, or sometimes we'll give a fixed cost, and it really kind of depends on what the customer's looking for up front.
Okay.
So once we have the price point established and we're ready to rock and roll, the next stage is going to be having an alignment of direction where we're going to be going with the design. So that's usually going to be me asking the questions to try to get any sort of design direction I can to pass along to one of our graphic designers to start that process. On a bike like this as well, we don't have templates, so we need to take a lot of custom measurements to essentially create that template to be coupled with that design direction to go ahead and create that design. And that also later on make sure that we're printing with accuracy.
So that brings me up to two questions. What does it take to be a graphic designer?
To be a graphic designer for a vehicle is a lot different than just designing for like a business card or a brochure. It's a 3D space, so you have to also understand how the contours of a 3D space are going to interact with the graphics.
Okay.
They can skew text, they can cut off things. You know, because we've all seen the commercial wraps where you have like a face on the back and the windshield wipers going through their face on the back. It takes a lot more going into it to be able to visualize how your graphics will interact with the 3D space that's going to be wrapped. So
okay, makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
Is there a specific schooling, or is it just like if you might be taught by yourself?
No, I think that like a lot of designers will go to school for sure. I think that some of it nowadays, just like most things in today's age, can be self-taught through, you know, online tutorials, things like that. But our designers both did have training in graphic design before they started working specifically with vehicles and specifically with our company. So both of our designers had a lot of experience before coming over to our team. Yeah.
No, that's awesome. That's really good to know. And then, which now brings me up to the most common question that any motorcycle person gets, and it's a two-part question. Is there a surcharge for motorcycles versus a car? And if so, why is that?
Good question. So the answer is yes. I'm not going to beat around the bush. Generally, the complexity of wrapping motorbike areas is quite a bit more complex than most vehicles. They do not use a ton of materials, which bigger vehicles, of course, do. But the complexity of a bike is something that can really add to the price point. I would say overall to think about doing a custom paint versus a wrap, you're absolutely going to be saving money on doing a wrap. And it also gives you the flexibility of being able to remove that wrap and rewrap it with a different design
100%.
while protecting the paint while the bike is wrapped. They have some definite perks for sure. But yeah, to answer your question, the labor that goes into wrapping a motorbike like this would be about the same as doing a 50% wrap on a work van on a commercial wrap. So you think about the amount of materials, it all comes down to the complexity of the bike, complexity of the area you're wrapping, other things like how much time is going into dismantle and reassembly.
Makes sense. With that being said, like me, I brought you guys my fender and my tank. Do you guys like when customers save a little bit of money, obviously, on the labor of removal, but is it good for a wrap person to have basically everything removed and brought, or do you want to have the whole product in front of you?
Yeah, absolutely. If the customer has the abilities to essentially dismantle and bring it to us in just the parts that are being wrapped, that is the best case scenario because it allows us just to do what we do best.
Okay.
It's not, screwing things on and off. It's laying vinyl down onto a material. So,
and then since we talked about like how good wrap is, my next question is going to be, what are good brands of wrap? Like I know there's 3M. I think there's other ones I'm not super familiar. So what are your recommendations? And a wrap such as this, what is the expectation of how long it should last?
Good question. Yeah. So in our industry, I think the most well-known name is 3M, as you mentioned. I would say that like the Coke and Pepsi of the best quality materials and the most well-known materials would be 3M and Avery Dennison. And they are pretty much exclusively the materials that we use at our shop. They do come with a higher price point, but they also allow for an easier installation just because they're premium quality products. So the way that I would justify it would be that even though we're paying more as a cost for the material, we're also going to be saving some time and costs on labor on the back end as well.
Understood.
And then our customers in turn just get the best possible product.
Look at this, like 100%. I have zero complaints. Like no, the amount of heads this turns, like it's zero complaints.
Yeah, and then the longevity that you
Yes,
asked
sir.
as well. So vehicle graphics can easily last for 5 to 6 years, if not longer. If anything, the longevity is fantastic. It's if you leave the graphics on there for too long, it can make for a much more lengthy removal at the end of the process. So for example, you know, if we're going to be removing graphics from a full wrap we've done on a Mercedes Sprinter, say, it'll take us 6 to 8 hours, somewhere in that range. We've had some graphics that have been left on for 12, 15 years, and that'll turn it into a 40-hour removal, which gets very costly. So that's the big thing is you don't want it to get too baked onto the surface by staying on over time. It still will not affect or harm the paint, but it essentially can just allow for like a very lengthy removal at the end of it. Yeah.
Okay, no, that's a great answer. Here's my question. So obviously this is a fuel tank, and unlike a car, I'm filling it from the top. What are some tips and tricks that you can give to our audience on how to protect your wrap to keep it the longevity longer?
Good question. Yeah. So all in all, like these materials are made for vehicle surfaces. They're made to be conformable to 3D spaces, and they're made to essentially like withstand weathering, as any vehicle would essentially be exposed to. If you spill a little bit of gas on the surface there, just give it a wipe. If you have the ability to get the old squeegee and the soapy water to give it a bit of a wash off, probably best case scenario. But that being said, I mean, you know, like you have to think that we wrap vehicles and they have, you know, windshield wiper fluid that's splashing onto the roof all day. It doesn't affect or damage it in any way. So I think that like most solutions, chemicals, things like that are going to be pretty safe to have on the vehicle. I would say as a due diligence though, to try to, you know, wipe them off when you can.
Fantastic.
Yeah, keep it clean.
Now we got a kind of an interesting portion coming up next. So this question is going to lead into you guys seeing how to actually do a wrap. So what are some tips and tricks that can a person with little to no experience do a simple wrap, like just a monotone, one color, not a full graphic? Or is it better to have some experience and go see a pro, or is it very doable? And we're going to show what are some tips and tricks, obviously, of how to wrap and what to look out for.
Yeah, so that's a good question. I would encourage anybody who wants to have some fun, to work with some material, to do it as a bit of a project, to give it a try. That being said, I want to set expectations that wrapping is very, very difficult. We have wrap installers that have been working with their company for 2-3 years who probably still cannot wrap this specific piece of your bike. It's a very, very complex learning process to become a professional wrap installer. So I would say from a perspective of having fun and just getting your hands on some material, absolutely give it a shot. If you're looking for a long-lasting wrap that's going to look amazing on your vehicle, please take it to a professional company that can help you out with it.
No, for sure. That's an awesome. Is there any material that you recommend for a beginner?
I would still go with any vehicle wrapping media is going to be, or sorry, any vehicle wrapping vinyl is going to have air release on the bottom, which allows it essentially to be able to stretch and paddled out. That's going to make it the easiest versus like a flat application vinyl. Something like this that's made for a flat application. It's not made for going around contours of vehicles. So if you ever try to use like a flat application vinyl on a 3D area, you're going to have a lot of trouble with it. The best installer in the world could not work out wrapping this area with a flat application.
Okay, I understand. I didn't even know that there was a difference. So that's a great tip. All righty. Well, for right now, we're going to turn the camera around and we're going to go to your business partner. And he is going to demonstrate how to lay graphics on a job that they're doing on the other side. So let's go. All righty, we're back. So here I am with Matt, the other owner of Prima Graphics, and we're going to show you the hands-on of how to wrap. So before we proceed, give us a little bit of an introduction about yourself.
Yeah, my name is Matt, one of the owners here. I've been wrapping vehicles mostly for almost 20 years actually. So yeah, it's a super fun job, still learning. Yeah, and excited to give you guys some tips. Got to say right away, wrapping is not only difficult, but it's risky. If you're working on a motorcycle or a car, you can cause a lot of damage if you're not careful. So excited to take some of my skills and give you the 30,000 foot view of it. hopefully enough to try some stuff at home, but want to stress that it's very risky. You're putting an X-Acto blade on a vehicle, so you got to be careful, even with the stuff we show you.
Okay, sounds good. A little bit of a scary start there, but hey, you know
Sorry
what?
about
No,
that.
I like it. I like it. I like it. Alrighty, so basically, I'm going to go grab the gimbal, and I'm going to follow your hands as you do what you're
Sure.
going to do.
Sounds good.
And basically, just to revisit it, is you're giving us not a super hardcore wrap, but you're basically doing this as a beginner-friendly tips and tricks.
Exactly. There's a lot of stuff that we've learned over the years. I mean, there's so many stages to wrapping, especially when you're running a business. You guys already talked about the design phases of that. That's everything just to get material in an installer's hand. But even for us, the pre-inspections of vehicles, documenting any chips, any paint, any damage, all of that is a big part of our business. But we won't waste any time on that. We'll just come into the basics of prepping a vehicle in terms of cleaning it, the basics of the material, and then a few of the fundamentals of how to apply the material, how to finish it, and should be enough to give you enough tools to have some fun at home.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Okay, so we're going to focus on an area here. This is a truck, but we'll focus on a curvy area. We figured this is, since most of you are motorcyclists and probably going to try wrapping something on a motorcycle, this is a fairly curvy area. But before we get started on the wrap, I'm going to show you guys a few of the tools we'll be using. We do have a heat gun, which you'll see me using in a sec. But starting with the cleaning, we have two solutions. We have a soapy water, which for a bottle this size, fill it up with warm water, put maybe 10 squirts of baby soap in there. Has to be baby soap. There's no chemicals in baby soap, so it's very important to make sure you use that. And then we have a bottle of isopropyl alcohol. This is a 70%, meaning it's 70% isopropyl and 30% water. Very important to use this as well. And then some of the tools we work with, I got a tool belt here, just various tapes and things, but for today you'll be seeing some glove work. This is a special wrap glove, but you can kind of use anything cotton or soft. We've got a paddle with a little buffer. You see it's a very soft. You can buy wrap kits on Amazon that kind of have everything at 20, 30 bucks. So you'll get a paddle, a glove. Then there's various little micro squeegees and stuff. Probably won't use too many of those today. Most important thing is an X-Acto blade. These are NT cutters. Super good Japanese blades. And then tweezers. So just a brief overview of what we'll be using. Some of those you'll see used for the cleaning phase and for the wrapping. So anyway, yeah, let's get started. First going to start with the soapy water. You don't want to use tons of water because obviously more water can leak into the cracks and it can take, time to dry and all that. So give it a quick, whatever you're wrapping, give it a quick soapy water. You want to start just by cleaning the area. Right, you want to make sure everything's cleaned. I'm going to be wrapping kind of this section. So not just cleaning where I'm wrapping, but a little bit past it. In your guys' case, if you're wrapping a fender or something, you'd want to clean underneath the fender as well, thinking anywhere dust can come from. Of course, you're only wrapping the top of the fender, but dust would come from underneath and get under and can contaminate your film if you're not careful. So giving that a good clean. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in on some of the cracks. Taking a rag. These are just microfiber rags. You get them from hardware stores or wherever. I like to put it over top of a paddle, the hard side. That gives me something rigid now to get in on these cracks. Very important to get all the dirt, right? I might fold a little bit in there. So I'm not just going to be wrapping here. I want to get inside those cracks a little bit. Okay, especially down in here. You see us getting down in the crack there, on the light. Obviously we're wrapping a vehicle, but pretty much anything you see here, you could transfer over to a gas tank or fender or whatever you decide to do on the bike. So that's the soapy water. I'm gonna do the exact same with 70% isopropyl. You can use a little bit more of this. It's alcohol, so it's gonna evaporate. Don't be so worried about getting it down in the crack as you do with the soapy water. So same thing, give the whole area clean, you know, going a little bit past the edges. You know, on this little edge, I would go underneath, try and capture, look at that hiding under there. Probably should have got that in the soapy water, but get clean there. Okay, same thing, find a nice place on the rag. Pull it over. Excellent. So now we'll move into the wrapping. Now that that's prepped, the wrap is going to be 2 phases. There's going to be the wrapping of the material, and then there's going to be the finishing, which is the cutting and trimming, which again, I want to stress you be very careful with the trimming. Even before I do it on the wrap, I'm just going to show you a few tricks here on the vehicle. With your blade, you're never cutting with this. You're positioning this in a place where it cuts, but anything touching is the edge of the blades, okay? So if you come in on the side here and see, I'm not going to cut here. If I put this piece, you'll see me soon cut this over here. I'm against the edge, right? The edge of my blade is gliding. That way there's no damage. If I'm in here, I'm going to shatter and chip paint, right? Which is not good. So you're always using the edge of the blade. So we'll cut a little piece of this wrap film. This is a conformable film. It's cast, so you can stretch it. Manufacturers say you can stretch it up to 30%, so a 10-inch piece of material could be stretched to 13 inches. We're a bit on the fence with that. In the industry, there's a lot of differences. We try not to stretch past 10%. So that's how you stretch. This is very easy. You'll see the heat up and just stretch, but you're gonna have issues later. It's always gonna wanna go back. So you're gonna get fingering, they call it. Looks like a bottle cap. You've probably seen bad wraps where things are moving back. So we try to, in general rule of thumb, try and keep it under 10%. Is usually the best. So the film's pretty, this is a copper gloss metallic. If you look on the back of any wrap film, if you were to look very close, I don't know if the camera's gonna catch it, it looks like a honeycomb. Those are egress channels. That allows the air to come out. They're like micro channels. Okay, so we'll get the film set onto here. And I think, you know, you can buy film online and Amazon, but go to a local sign shop, local wrap shop. They're always around, like Prima. Guys have tons of scraps. You can ask if you want to pick some stuff up. So you can see for here, you know, the areas that are flat are going to lay, you know, they're going to lay down pretty flat, right? Like so. But I've got stuff here, right? So if I continued this line across and I continued up here, I've got a bunch of material there that needs to be stretched out. So my goal is to kind of get that in a place where I can stretch it around this curve without overstretching it. Again, overstretching, in my opinion, would be past 10%. So in this case, I'm gonna get the heat gun going. I keep it about 800 degrees. And just gonna heat it a little bit. And again, I could heat this and just go commando and just stretch it. It'll stretch 20 inches if I want it, but I'm trying to get it warm enough, but not too hot. See here, you can see the material moving. You see it start to kind of move with the, that's when you know you're kind of warm enough. This is very much a feel thing too. So I'm kind of stretching it apart and long. And not overstretching, I'm stretching just enough, okay? So if you look there, I'm now able to paddle the air out, okay? And look, if you get a little bubble like that, trust those egress channels. It'll go away, right? It's amazing how the egress channels allow the air to go. This is an older expired material. Should have grabbed something fresher, but let's see here, I've got some stuff. You can kind of work ahead of it. I'm pulling with my hands, right? It's amazing what this stuff can do. Okay. Gives you a bit of an idea of how you can work with the material. Right now I can get a place here. This isn't a good example because normally your offcut would be down lower. You don't really want to try, you don't want to get your hand underneath where you're, because if, you know, any contaminants you might have is dry skin, you know, hair, dirty fingers, it's gonna transfer underneath there, right? So general thumb is you're holding what's past what you're doing, but just I'm giving you an idea here. I'll go down a little further. Stuff like this, you can pull it a bit ahead, right? It's pliable, and then you can work it. You work it into areas, right? See some things like wrinkles like that. You can kind of pre-stretch it in a way that sets you up for success on your paddling, right? And you can see some of the stuff here, intentionally showing some situations you can be in with little bubbles you saw. Just trust the egress channels, it'll come up.
So then I have a rookie question here. So with something like this, where you have a level change, you stretch it into level and then out of the level, you did not stretch it over and then try to feed it in, correct?
So there's two things you can do. I fed it in, which means zero stretching. That's always going to be the best and most durable. There is another option which would be called bridging. It's bridging it over top. I'll show you an example of that. So by stretching this will be neat for you to see as well. You can see how disfigured that is from me stretching. It's going to hit that with a little bit of heat. It's going to go right back. This is an amazing material that has a memory, so it'll always go back to where it started. The question you probably ask, well, then if you're stretching all those areas, isn't it going to want to pop out? The answer is, of course it is, which is the last stage of wrapping. It's called post-heating. When you've changed the memory of this material, you need to rechange it. Post-heating is a process of bringing it up to 220 degrees, and it reinitializes the memory of the material, and then it'll stay like that. Again, if you stayed within that kind of 10% stretching, you stretch 30%, you might be looking for trouble later. So this is bridging. You're kind of taking it over that. Okay, find two spots. Right. This is where your glove would come in handy, because then you can use. Now I'm immediately stretching this material, which is, we call them recess areas. The material can puff out if you're not careful. So when I stretch into something like this, I'll get it to that edge, right? I don't want to heat right at. I want to warm it up a little bit right there, but I want to pull from down here. I'm not sure if that makes sense, but I'm keeping the stretchy area away from the area that could potentially puff out later. So I'll activate that area, just get it warm, but I'm going to focus my heat down here. I'm angled away from this part. Plus, if it's too hot here, it's just going to turn to gum, right? Whereas if I at least activate it, the intention to show you, it's just going to melt in your finger. It's just toast, very stretchy. But if I'm doing it properly, I heat it up just a bit, but I'm stretching down here, right? Now I can work it down in there. We heat angled away, right? And now all the stretching happened down here. And again, trust your egress channels. You can work it out. So now I'll show you a bit of trimming. Again, the most important thing I'm going to show you, I could trim this, flush cut it right to the edge here, or I could cut on this side and give myself some material to fold in. So always recommend using a fresh blade when you're making cuts. Our guys, we got 4 full-time installers here. They'll go through 20 blades sometimes in a day, which is great. It means we're delivering quality work. So 10 degree angle here is very important. I like to use my fingers below, up against the car, as I mentioned, and I'm just running it along like I'm running it along a ruler. Okay. Trusting them down there, okay, and down. Now, just another cool little thing for you to see here. If you come in here and watch, because I pre-stretched this, right? There's stretch in that material, which even though now you're seeing I'm getting some wrinkles there, if I hit that with a little bit of heat, because it's been stretched, it will take those wrinkles out. Most of them, maybe not fully. And then you can take it and blend it on the tip, blend it. And these you can work down with your finger, soft paddle first. Hard battle next. So, always difficult to show someone how to do it. There's a lot more that could be done, but I think that will give you guys enough. Just gonna grab a quick tool to show you the post-heating process. So this is a thermal gun. So as you can see, we've got it on Fahrenheit. So what I'm gonna wanna do is when I talk about post-heating, because I stretch this, I wanna post-heat it. So take the gun up to about 1,000 degrees. Right now, if you look at that vehicle, it's sitting at 88, okay? If I put my heat gun right on there, heat it up, look at it going up, boom, it's at 200. Sorry, color change film is you gotta go past 180 degree Fahrenheit. Other materials that we print on are 220. So, but the goal is, I don't necessarily wanna have that right in there, because look, it gets very hot when the gun's there, take it away, the surface isn't as hot. So the trick is to kind of get moving with your gun and follow 3 or 4 inches behind it. So again, in this case, I want to get it up to about 185. Again, this part's not stretched, but starting here, if you're about 1 inch away and you move this pace, there it is, 185, 194. 220, that's fine. 230, that's post-heated. The memory of that film has been reinitiated to this spot and will not lift later. If I didn't post-heat, go on a hot sunny day, it's gonna finger and lift out of there and go back to where we started, which is not good. So post-heat is extremely important, especially when you're doing something curvy. Around all those edges, you wanna get that post-heating done.
Fantastic. I have one last question.
Of course.
So we have this fender piece down here.
Mm-hmm.
How would you tuck that? Are you going to roll it under a little bit, or would you just...
For this part here?
This part right over
Yeah,
here?
so yeah, that's a good question. So you have a lot of options there. Depends on the job scope. In this case, for commercial vehicles, we do a lot of commercial vehicles. We don't wrap probably 90% of the vehicles under here because we live in Vancouver, lots of rain, lots of salt, rocks. It just gets destroyed. So we kiss cut it, which is cutting right, would be a cut like this, cutting right at it, and you can see. Obviously, there's people that want to see things go underneath there, so in that case, we would tuck it underneath, right? And then we would make the cut on the back part of the vehicle. Again, running the side of the blade on the thing. So it gives you the option. Again, that's not going to last very long. It's going to look all, pebbles are going to hit it. They're going to tear it. Stuff's going to get in there. This is much safer here. So take it as far as you want. At least with motorcycles, they're smaller parts. You can always rewrap those areas later if it doesn't hold up.
Is there different prep from something that's metallic to something that's plastic?
Yeah, so we try to stay away from plastic completely. Your warranty is void if you wrap plastics. This material is not made. There's things you could do to try. There's some priming agents and things you can paint on there, which will help it to adhere, but it's not recommended to wrap plastics. Dense, solid plastics that have a very solid coat, almost, you know, like a plexiglass or something, that almost looks like glass. That's going to have good surface tension, they call it, meaning it's going to have a good bond. But if you look at a lot of these other plastics, if you get close, it's almost frosty. The adhesive on the material will never fully bond into there, and it'll just it'll fail.
Fantastic. Well, I appreciate your time and the demonstration. Do you have any closing remarks for the audience?
No, I say have some fun with it. I think there's enough in there. You just look at it as your prep. First stage is prep. That's giving it a soapy water, getting the area clean, and then following it with the ISO. That's the cleaning phase is first. Number 2 is wrapping. I think you've got enough there. Keep it under 10% stretching. Have some fun. And then number 3, you got your finishing, cutting everything. And I can't stress enough, cutting is where you can do some serious damage, even if it's your own motorcycle or, you know, this video is to help give you some tips to have some fun trying it, but keep in mind, be very careful with the blade. You do not want the edge of the blade touching the part or the vehicle in any way, because you can cause a lot of damage.
Okay, fantastic. Well, again, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Now off back to us for closing remarks.
Have some fun.
All right, I hope you guys enjoyed the little tutorial, and I hope that you guys can have some fun with wrapping. And on that note, we are going to give the floor to Tyson with some closing remarks. And the biggest question, what is the future of Prima Graphics?
Thank you very much. I appreciate the video and the opportunity. It was awesome to have you here today. Where I see Prima Graphics in the future is continuing to do a lot of what we do already, but also looking into other surfaces that we can apply wraps to. So some of those would be putting films onto windows that can do things like cutting down on like solar heat, UV, things like that. Another one is called Dynoc, and it's a 3M product, which we use a lot of already for our vehicles. But Dynoc is actually a product that can be put onto millwork in order to essentially finish a surface in a way that is traditionally done with other much more expensive methods. So that's something we're definitely going to be branching into. It's wrapping a surface, the same as wrapping a surface for a vehicle, but just a bit of a different application. So that's pretty much it, man. Keep compounding on what we do and moving to a couple different other areas as well.
No, that's amazing. I really hope that the future and the cost savings and the potential opportunities are there for you.
Yeah.
And I appreciate your time that you've given to me and Matt's time for showing it to all of us rookies how to wrap. Basically, we are going to put down your information. So if you guys have questions, if you guys are in the Vancouver area, or maybe even you guys are in the Washington state and you guys are looking to get a really good wrap, high quality, and I stand by this 100%, then by all means reach out. These guys will be more than willing to help. And as always, basically comment, like, and subscribe. It does help me out. It does help us out with the potential to do these kinds of collaborations. And one thing that I'm going to leave it on is I think after the audience watches this, I think they're going to want you to really push for your YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Because you guys can do a lot of cool stuff and a lot of cool tips and tricks. And I think people would love to see the projects that roll through here, from a motorcycle to maybe a commercial transport vehicle. You never know, right?
Sure.
So anything you want to leave the audience on?
No, that's it, man. I just want to really thank you for coming by. It's always a pleasure seeing you.
That was awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.
All right, guys. Ride safe.
Thank you.